Hi, so my research proposal is over what is the correlation among breastfeeding outcomes, maternal support, and the prevalence of postpartum depression. I'm excited to dive into this with you. Okay, so getting into my research proposal, I read a bunch of literature and some of it really didn't match up with what I had learned through doula training, through through my biology courses. But I guess what I didn't take into account is how much psychological issues, how much mental health, how much that affects how the rest of the body responds to for breastfeeding, for everything, how that really makes an impact on everything. And so I had not taken that into account because of my biology background. And you really never know. It's different from person to person. So I know that there'll never be straight across the same answers for everyone. There's not one specific journey, one specific route for everyone to take to make sure that they don't have postpartum depression, or to make sure that they can breastfeed, or to make sure that they do have a support system. Everyone is different. And so I think that that's important to take into account. So I read a bunch of articles, and some of them were disheartening on how a lot of women were not educated on not only the benefits of breastfeeding for their children, but also the benefits of breastfeeding for themselves, and how it can really help them with hormone changes, and with their body changes, and with future, with like arthritis, and helping prevent cancer and things like that. I thought that my research I thought breastfeeding outcomes would be a shoo-in to being a positive impact on both postpartum depression and maternal support, but I may be wrong. Some of the literature that I read, well, most of it about breastfeeding, said it was all about the mother's intentions on whether or not she was at risk for postpartum depression. So if a mother was planning on breastfeeding but ended up not being able to, for maybe it was for work or time, or not lack of support, or just physically could not, she would be at a greater risk for postpartum depression, which I figured that one. But what I didn't see coming was that mothers who did not plan on breastfeeding and ended up breastfeeding were also at risk for postpartum depression. And that one blew my mind. I thought, wow, I thought that breastfeeding would be a benefit no matter what the intentions. So that makes my research even more interesting, and may not turn out the way that I hypothesized, which would be great either way, so that we can see if there's a pattern, and see if we can educate these mothers on making the best decisions for themselves. If they are not planning on breastfeeding, then maybe we don't need to start them on that journey, and maybe just focus on supporting them, supporting their mental health, and supporting them formula feeding their baby. So first, the participants in my study, I will be using Facebook, Instagram, and word of mouth. I know a lot of people all over Oklahoma, Missouri, South Carolina, Georgia, and then I've got family all over the place. So hopefully with them sharing my Facebook posts, I will be able to get women of all races, ages, they've had different number of children, they've had different experiences. I need mothers that never even initiated breastfeeding, and then I need mothers that breastfed for over a year. So I need everyone on the spectrum. They must be between 6 months and 2 years postpartum, and have finished breastfeeding, so that they can have an accurate answer on how long they breastfed and how supported they felt. And so breastfeeding outcomes will be measured by number of months the mother breastfed, plus the ease of output. So how much breast milk was overall was produced while she was breastfeeding. Was it non-existent? Was it marginal? Was it light? Was it sufficient? Was it heavy? Or was it profuse? Because I feel like marginal or non-existent and profuse could all negatively impact the mother psychologically. Maternal support will be measured through the quality of relationships inventory, And that is a 25 question survey, and it goes over it. You fill in a blank talking about one person. So I'm going to have them choose 3 people, significant other, if there is one, a close friend or family, and a boss. And if they don't have a boss, if they don't have a job, then they'll just choose someone else that they're close with. And they'll answer these 25 A, B, C, D questions about these people. One of them is how close can you count, how well can you count on this person? So it's not at all, somewhat, I can, or I can very much, and there's a scoring system for the 25 questions. And so with them filling out 3 times, I will average the score on that, and that will be their score for maternal support. Postpartum depression will be measured by the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale, and that is a series of 10 questions, each with four possible answers, and each answer, there's a scoring system, will be between 0 and 3 points apiece. And based off of that scale, women who are pregnant, if they score a 15 or higher, they are recommended to see a mental health professional. If they are postpartum, if it's a 13 or if they score 13 or higher, it's recommended for them to see a mental health care professional. And that's so they can get up to a total of 30, but if they get higher than 13, then it's said that they have postpartum depression, but needs to be approved or accepted by a professional. So I will use scatter plots to look at the relationships between postpartum depression and maternal support and breastfeeding outcomes, and so on and so forth, just one at a time, to see if there are any one-way correlations, if there's any strong correlations. Then I will look at the relationships and see if there's an effect with breastfeeding outcomes and maternal support on postpartum depression, and maternal support on breastfeeding, and so on and so forth. And so I will do combined scores. So say it's breastfeeding, maternal support on postpartum depression. So I will combine the scores of breastfeeding outcomes and maternal support, and put those scores horizontally. And then vertically drop down on the table will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up through 30 for the EPDS, the depression scale, and see how many women fall on the scoring of the 2 and the 1, and then also look at percentages. And if there's any high numbers, any high percentages, then that's a correlation. And this will be a step in, I know that correlation does not necessarily mean causation, but if there's a strong correlation, which I believe right now the only one that I'm convinced that there will be a strong correlation is, I believe that maternal support will positively impact breastfeeding outcomes and will negatively impact the score of the prevalence of postpartum depression. So will benefit the mom in helping to reduce or diminish postpartum depression symptoms. So this will be an exciting thing to look forward to, and to possibly doing further research if there's any strong correlations to either way, positive or negative, to see if I could start to look into causation. So correlation is the first thing that I need to look at, and then maybe eventually getting to look at if what is causing this, if this is actually causing it, or if it's just a correlation, if it's a jumble of a bunch of things, or if it's a fluke. You never know with correlation studies if it's just, I happen to find 75 women, which is my goal, to find 75 women across to see if this is legit, if it's causing it, or if it's just a correlation. So that's my study. I'm really excited to conduct it over the next year and a half. I look forward to whatever my findings are to aid in educating women on what's the best decision for themselves, their babies, and their families. And I'm just thankful to be able to to be able to put this together under the guidance of Dr. Farrell.